Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. I want to introduce you to somebody who makes products for the home, for yourself, that are healthy, free of those complex chemicals that just aren't healthy for you. And also not for the environment. How bad is the environment? We always hear about it, but we're really not 100% sure because we're not the experts, but she is, and she's the woman behind Aspire and the product line of such great stuff. And she's live and direct from Colorado, and she's back with us. Julie Smith, welcome. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We talked last time, got into some of the products, and I would love to know what your inspiration was for Aspire. I know that you're big into the environment. It's part of your life, part of your occupation, maybe in the past. I don't know if you're still. Then you work for the Forest Service. I'm trying to remember.
Oh no, I work for the Miller Coors Brewery in Golden.
Wastewater treatment plant you worked at.
Yeah, water and wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah. Okay. So you really plugged in with the environment. When we look at the environmental situation, I don't want to be negative here, but how bad is it right now?
Well, thank you for asking. It's really bad, and it really does. It makes me nervous, and I tend, I guess, to be a fairly proactive person. I did spend the first half of my career actually in the oil industry, and couldn't do it anymore. Let's call it about 10 years in, I started waking up to our environmental issues, and I took it seriously, and I started looking into it. And I started Aspire because I want to make a difference by offering sustainable choices for consumers that I find extremely difficult to find in typical grocery stores. I found myself just getting OCD about it, reading all the labels and finding bad things in all of them. And I found that the truly scary thing is that most people seem to realize that there is some sort of a problem with the environment, but just seem so overwhelmed or just dumbed down by the issue that they don't see themselves as part of the problem, much less part of the change. And I began the process again decades ago, looking in the mirror when I was working in the oil industry, began making changes almost immediately. I found very basic opportunities to do recycling and turn down the heat and change how I did things. And I began considering what I could do better to reduce my impact. And I don't know what it is about me that made me react with such urgency, while most people don't seem to see themselves as being capable of relevant change, or somehow seem to think that eventually somebody else, like the government or whatever, will take care of it. At any rate, that it's someone else's problem and that it's out there. To me, that is scary, because each and every one of us has the collective power to create change. And if none of us does anything different, there will be no change. And we'll drive our planet and our human species into oblivion. We really do have the potential to do that. Uninhabitable by life as we know it. And I don't think if we know better, I just don't think we have excuses, and we really do know better. It's really up to each of us to keep this disaster from happening. And when we know what we're doing, we should be doing it. And it brings, I have a couple of quotes that are relevant. One is by Albert Einstein, who said that the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. And that is and he speaks from personal experience, and he's not talking about the environment. He's talking about the Holocaust that he lived and he escaped, and he actually managed to get here to the US to safety while most of his friends and family were murdered. And so he has some serious experience behind that quote. And then another one by Margaret Mead, that I think is more positive, and it's very true. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And I really do believe that. And for the last 10 years that I worked at Coors, that was on my signature line of all of my emails when I was the energy engineer at Coors.
Wow. When we're talking about beer, and I don't mean to pivot, but I learned this yesterday and it kind of blew me away. So somebody who's plugged into bioengineered food, GMO, all of that. We were talking about beer in general. And I said, it was my belief that if you buy from a small craft brewery, that it's better for you. It's just better. It's more, it's small batch. They watch everything, but no, when it comes to bioengineered grains and GMO and all of that, they're getting it, unfortunately, same place everybody else is getting it from. So,
yep, it's true.
Yeah, it was kind of deflating. It's like, can you get organic beer anywhere? And they said, I don't know if it's even available. Very rare to find it.
You can. Coors developed an organic beer product, and sadly, I saw it one time as a retiree. I can go to the beer store and get a case of beer for $9.99. So that's what I do, but it's hit or miss. So some of those products that they don't have a whole lot of it out, they'll roll it out and you'll see it once, and then you won't see it again in the beer store. They may be selling it on the East Coast or something as they develop their market and their plan and so on. But they did have it, and there is a little of that around. There's also organic wine around. Yeah, you have to just watch, but it can be done, but it's pretty arduous. For Aspire, for my products, most everything is organic. I have all organic oils that I use to make the products. I think our food that we buy at home is all organic because it's hugely important to keep the poisons and toxins out of our system, out of our world. And the way to do that is to place a consumer demand for organic products. So that's very important for us. Now, the labeling of them and the certification, it turns out the Department of Agriculture doesn't do that. You have to find an engineering firm to certify for you. And so now we're talking about a for-profit engineering firm, and that is not that's fairly expensive to do. So there are some workarounds on that to let people know that you do have organic products, even if you're not certified, they're legal. And so, we can do that. But anyway, when it gets down to the environment, we hear so much about it. We've heard so much about it for years and years, most of us. And I really do believe there is a dumbing down. You just get used to hearing things.
Yes.
And then nothing ever happens, or it happens so slowly that we don't notice it. And so I wanted to point out just a couple. First of all, is there really a problem with the environment? I know people who really don't think there's that big of a problem with the environment, and here I am thinking there really is. Is it really necessary to change how we do things? Is it really necessary to change what I do? And I'm actually, again, I'm working on a book on environmental sustainability because I just love research. And I think I can make a difference with this book, I hope. But I've been doing basically what I did as the energy engineer at Coors. So the second half of my career at Coors was the energy engineer. So the first half of my entire career, 22 years in the oil industry, was getting more oil out of the ground. Couldn't do it anymore, moved to Coors and start out. I got my foot in the door in the water and wastewater plants. So that was my core. But they saw my passion and they moved me into energy engineer. And that was to reduce energy per barrel of beer. And then that's all transparent on their website and LEED certified and everything else, that they do. And I analyze the data, and I'm really good at that, it turns out. And it didn't take too much analysis to figure out that what the big thing that we needed to do to get some serious energy reductions was simply by running equipment differently. Equipment we already had. So we didn't have to spend a bunch of money. We didn't have to do a capital project. We had to just change the behavior of how we were running our compressors. And we're talking, 1,000 horsepower compressors. for plant air and for ammonia refrigeration and things like that. I mean, this is a big brewery. So just changing how we ran those saved a bunch of energy, and saving a bunch of energy obviously saves a bunch of money. We saved $1 million in just the first year alone, and then
Wow.
got really into with it. That can be done. And all of us individuals have that opportunity. All of us can figure things out. Um, and at a global warming, if we get back to, is there truly a problem with the environment at a global level? I have correlated global warming with human carbon emissions, and can definitely say that human carbon emissions are responsible for 80% of CO2 concentration increases in the atmosphere since 1910, which was the last time that we were actually in balance with our planet. And
Wow.
so it's definitely us. And when you look at, and I also did a correlation with temperature increase versus human CO2 emissions, and found that that's a 97% correlation coefficient. So that means it's definitely us. So, there's other things that you see. You see that you've heard of probably merchants of doubt, right? The marketing campaigns that big corps have thrown out there, like cigarettes don't really kill you, these kinds of things, and they've actually had doubt campaigns to convince people, or to make people less concerned about global warming. And they'll throw out things like plate tectonics, earthquakes, ocean currents that drive the glacial and interglacial cycles, planetary precession, wobble, eccentricity, axial tilt, proximity to the sun, which varies according to where our planet is in its elliptical orbit. That is all less. That's like 20% of the increase. The other 80% of the increase is us. And we can't do anything about the 20%. We can't tell the planet where to be and how to wobble, as far as I know at this point in our technology. But we can definitely change our behavior, and we can make a big difference. But we have to actually do it.
Well, you are making a difference with your products. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. I
Okay.
was surprised the other day. Recycling, so important. And I was at somebody's house, and they're actually in the same town as I am. And I wasn't aware of this, where they are located, but they wanted to be responsible and recycle, but the town doesn't pick up the recyclables. You have to take
Mm-hmm.
them to the town. And she said, great. Why am I going to do that? I'll just go to the beverage store and get 5 cents a bottle. Instead, if I want to take them anywhere, I might as well take them there, as opposed to taking them to the town. And I thought, that's the first I ever heard. Usually, at least in these parts, they give you a special garbage can. You put your recyclables in there, and you wait on a certain day, Tuesday or whatever, and that's when they pick only those up, less than plastic or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
might be. It just kind of surprised me that a town wouldn't work hard to make sure that that's easy enough for everybody to do, because it's so important, right?
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is.
What can
And
you tell
it's,
us
but
in terms of recycling? Any thoughts that pop in your head? Any kind of facts and info that we might not be aware of?
on recycling, well, I guess a lot of it, curbside is actually pretty, single stream curbside in the last 20 years or so. Before that, any recycling, you did have to take it someplace. And actually, my father started me recycling when I was about 10 years old. Maybe that was the spark. He had me going door to door collecting beer cans, so that, and then he would take me on the weekend to the Coors Golden Goat to go get them recycled and get a half a penny a can.
Wow.
So Coors was really proactive even back then. I mean, now we're talking 50 years ago. So that was quite a big deal. But recycling is hugely important, because every container, every single use container that we buy, um, is getting made from something. So plastic, unless it's bioplastic, it's made from corn oil. It's actually it's made mostly from petroleum. So those are they're produced from an oil field someplace, and then they're pumped to a refinery, or hauled to a refinery in a tanker truck, and then they're refined, which takes an awful lot of energy. And then plastic is actually the byproduct of the let's call them the lower molecular weight components that actually make up natural gas and propane and things that we use for energy down to your gasolines, your diesels, your fuel oils. But the plastic, the SMARM at the bottom is actually what they reform into the plastic. So the oil industry really is motivated to get rid of it. And they've been telling us for the last um, well, again, like the last 50 years or whatever, that plastic is perfectly recyclable, infinitely recyclable. And that is true, but there are so many different kinds of plastic that you can't recycle them back into what they were. They have to be what's called downcycled. And in the United States today, we're only bothering to recycle about 8% of the plastics. And the rest of it is ending up just taking up landfills, which takes up more space from the environment. It takes up, which is important because every time we take up more space, we are creating more limitations to our environment to absorb the CO2 that we're emitting that's causing our global warming. Because natural land, trees particularly, absorb CO2 because they're the opposite of us. We breathe in oxygen and we breathe out CO2, just like all animals. But plants and trees actually use the CO2 in their respiratory system and then they emit oxygen. So they do the exact opposite and they absorb. So if we take up land by creating single-use containers, whether it be for plastic from petroleum refinery, from glass. Glass is made from limestone, sand, and sodium carbonate, which are all soda ash, which are all mined products. And they have to be melted at great temperature to produce glass. And they have to be hauled to the glass plant to get produced from mines that are far away. In the case of the glass plant for Coors, there are two glass plants in Colorado, and the raw materials come from Oklahoma and Wyoming. So great distances. Aluminum is the same way. You have to mine bauxite ore, and then you have to apply a lot of electricity to get the aluminum separated from the bauxite and into aluminum. It literally takes 1/20th as much energy to recycle aluminum and just remelt it back into aluminum. And with glass, it's much less energy because when you remelt glass, you lower the temperature, the melting temperature of the whole mix by seating it down to about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And when you just make glass from raw materials, it's 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And they use natural gas for those furnaces. So it's a huge carbon footprint.
Wow.
To make those. So single-use containers are absolutely, and we pay for that. When we buy a product in a single-use container, we're paying about double for the container. If it's like 4 ounces, we're paying 4 times as much for like a 1.15 ounce tube of lip balm. We're paying 4 times as much just for the container as what's in it.
Why, Julie, why is the number of plastic items being recycled so low? I think I heard you clear there, but that number was like blew me away in terms of what's being recycled.
8% glass, or 8% is the plastic. Glass is like something like, I think some parts of the country are recycling about 30% of the glass. In Colorado, we're recycling about 15% of the glass and recycling about 15%. So most towns in Colorado don't have recycling either. And part of the reason in the West that it's really bad, it's better in the East than it is in the West because there's less landfill space in the East. In the West, we have a bunch of land, so we're just, filling landfills because we can.
Why?
And
why is this going on?
Yeah.
Because there's the aha that, and I want to say that's what I was looking for. I wasn't really looking for it, but I wanted to hear something that was impactful. And oh my gosh, less than 10% of plastic is recycled. With all the efforts, all the technology, all the plants, all of that number in 2023 blows me away. Even if you said 25%, I'd be a little surprised that it was that low. Why? Why do you think?
Just complacency. People don't get it. And it's sad. And we don't understand, and here's another soundbite for you. Single-use plastic is about, it's almost 2% of our national carbon footprint, which is absolutely ludicrously high in the US compared to the rest of the world. Let's say we have our carbon footprint per capita per person is about 15 tons per person per year in the United States. The global average is about 4 tons per year. In Europe, they really are good at recycling. In Europe, there are 5 tons per year. I'm sorry, it's more like 5 tons a year. And so, and in Europe, most European countries are in that range. They're about, the global average. And here we are 3 times that. And we're we just don't think responsibly here. And a lot of, like, our food footprint, for instance, most of our food, or not most of it, but a lot of our food comes from more than 1,000 miles away. And we have options. We don't have to go to a big box store and buy food from 1,000 miles away. We can get food locally by bothering to go to the farmer's market and go to local markets. Yep. And make that a priority. We can also get our food unpackaged that way, unprocessed, and healthier, because most local farmers don't like to use the things that are, like, they call it conventional, which I fail to understand why. Because conventional until 200 years ago didn't involve fertilizers and pesticides. But, now that's conventional, and organic is the way it used to be. But when we buy things that are local, they're more likely to be organic, because farmers don't want to poison themselves while they're growing their food, and they don't want to poison their land. So if there is anything getting used, it's not going to be a lot. So the lowest carbon footprint is to buy locally. And, honestly, ask yourself how much of your food is local. That's how we've just gotten ourselves into this supply chain, and we're used to instant gratification. We're used to getting bananas any time of the year, and downright indignant if we don't, and they come from far, far away. And it's just what we're used to.
Well, we allowed this to happen because, to your point, I think many of us would like to go to the local farmer, know it's fresh, know there's no pesticides in it. Why don't we? Honestly, me personally, I don't have time, because life, and I think this is everybody, we've allowed life to overtake us in terms of jobs, responsibilities, making money, moving forward, all of that. And we didn't leave time for that, where if you went back 100 years, that was a big family thing. We're going to go to the farm today. We're going to pick out everything we're going to eat. We have a couple of minutes left. I want to talk about your products. We mentioned them last time, but you have products for personal care, house care, cleaning, all different types on your website, right?
Yes. And, one thing I guess we can use, hold up some examples. All of my products are available in bulk, and the containers are all recyclable. Because another thing that happens with things that are, that can't be recycled, is if you have multiple components, like you have ends that are a different kind of plastic, and then you have that, and then you've got maybe couple metal pieces in there or something like that, and that makes it awkward. So these products all are in containers that are recyclable or reusable. And tooth powder is an example. It'd be a whole different way of buying it that's even more convenient than going to the store for a busy working person. You get on the website, you order your products, and then they get sent right to your home. How much more convenient can that be?
Sure.
And they can be done in reuses. So we have, like, for the tooth powder, we get rid of the toothpaste tube that can't be recycled in single stream. We put 900 million of those a year, by the way, in landfill. Okay, let's get rid of those toothpaste tubes and use tooth powder, which is just toothpaste without the water. So instead of a paste that we squeeze out, we just tap a little bit of powder on our wet toothpaste and brush our teeth. Now that I have the container is will last you probably longer than a tube of toothpaste. But let's say, for the sake of argument, just by doing that, you get rid of 4 toothpaste tubes a year per person and kill that 900 million toothpaste tubes going to landfill. And we do that with each one of our products. Now, to refill that thing, if you're local, you come by and I put some more in it, and it costs you less than half as much to fill it as it did to buy the container in the first place. We also have options to bring your own jar. If you have a leftover jar from some other product that you've cleaned out, bring that and I'll put that in. You don't ever have to buy a container to start with. People that live further away are able to buy jars with, like, say, 8 ounces of tooth powder, which is enough to last an entire year. And they're standard canning jars, so they could use them for canning at home. They could send it back and get it refilled if they want to do that, or they can give it to somebody that cans, something like that. There's always a use for canning jars. It's a travesty to throw away those. And when you go to the grocery store, you find a lot of canning jars there are a lot of, like, tomato sauces, mayonnaise, different. You can notice if they are standard canning jars, and those are meant to be reused. And in fact, it's at Aspire, the canning jars that I'm using for the 16 ounce were probably mayonnaise jars originally.
Wow.
And I only buy jars if I run out of reused jars. So I reuse pretty much everything. And that's just one example
at a time. And thank you for the example. And I have to tell you, Julie, I see a different side of you in talking today, in that you have the very, very deep background, and it's not about just healthy products. We're also helping the environment. We didn't dig deep into the environment last time, but what a total win. And half the stuff in my house I buy online. I'll go on Amazon or whatever. I'm not going to make it to the store today. And why not just go to your website and get it there and know that you're helping the environment. You're helping yourself. I mean, the tooth powder, you were just talking about the environmental positivity of it. You didn't even get into the fact that it's not all chemicals and garbage that's in toothpaste, that's all it is. And what do you do? You usually, when you squeeze it out, you usually have a wet toothbrush, or you run it under water before you put it in your mouth anyway. So why not do that with safe tooth powder? What's your website? Let's share that with everybody.
AspireColo.com. So AspireColo.com. Something else real quick. $75 and more orders, our shipping is free. And that's enough for a person to probably get a year's worth of their personal products, and then not have to buy things like the, Castile soap or deodorant or lip moist, lotion, lip balm, anything. You could probably buy a year's worth of your personal care and home care cleaning products, and then get free shipping.
Yeah, so. Julie, it's such a great deal. And listen, when I love spraying aluminum underneath my arms with my said no one. All the chemicals in there. Yeah, your stuff is the real deal, and it's backed with the research and your decades of experience. I appreciate everything today, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for talking to me. Very fun conversation.
Same. Look forward next time we get a chance to get together.
All righty.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.